Omen's remake came out in the year 2006. It starred the likes of Liev, Schreiber, and Julia Stiles, while the entire thing was directed by John Moore. If you're familiar with the remake of Psycho and ultimately how that one panned out, then you pretty much already know what The Omen is. The remake of The Omen ultimately tells the same exact story as the original film did back in 1976. That is, a child is born that is supposedly the child of the devil, and he is adopted by an American official, this time played by Liev Schreiber. And little by little, with a little bit of warnings from some priests and otherwise, that their kid might be evil. In fact, not just evil, not just the son of Satan, but also the Antichrist. This puts their lives at danger, and so they have to find out now what the heck they're gonna do about this. So, as I had mentioned, if you have seen or at least know about the Psycho remake with Vince Vaughn and how that did overall, you already know what this is all about. No, it's not Psycho, but it does the same thing as that movie. That is, it's basically a shot-for-shot remake of the original film, or at least nearly. I would say like 95% it's a shot-for-shot remake. The only differences are that it transformed itself a little bit to make sense and be relevant with modern times versus something that came out in the 70s. But the story, the characters, and all that is timeless, and it's the stuff that didn't change at all. I would say apart from a shot-for-shot remake, it also had basically a line-for-line remake. A huge chunk of the script was basically just the same script as the 1976 film. And ultimately, Psycho didn't work out. Everybody hated that film. Why? Because it was completely uninspired. It didn't even try, It just remained safe and did the same thing as the original film did. And yes, like Psycho, The Omen is iconic. It is known for certain sequences, it is known for certain lines, it is known for certain shots and death scenes and all this. And maybe part of the point was to elicit a form of nostalgia by redoing all of those to a T. But this is exactly why I always kind of laugh at people when they say they want a remake to remain faithful to the original source material. Because when they remain faithful to the source material, this is what happens, alright? Because look, the Psycho movie, that was incredibly faithful to the source material. And so is this. But the more faithful it is, the more confused you are as to why you're even watching it in the first place, because the original is always going to do it better. Lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot. You're not going to hit the lottery twice, especially if you're just copy-pasting other people's work. You know what that's called? Cheating. Because on the surface, yes, they're doing the same exact scenes that worked so well and were so memorable from The Omen. But I'll just say this. If you like to draw and you trace other people's work, it will have the same appearance as the original artwork, but it won't have the spirit, it won't have the atmosphere, it won't have any of that. What I mean by that is, apart from scenes that might be iconic or memorable in the first Omen film, Richard Donner, who directed the first Omen film, had a vision behind the tone of the film alone. And that tone of the film is what helped it catapult into a pretty popular and successful series. That tone did that, not the events that took place. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy here, but honestly, I didn't really sense any horror tones in this movie whatsoever. Horror things were happening, horror things occurred, but you're never scared because it feels so produced and it feels very matter of fact. It's just, they had a quota to fulfill, Like they needed to do A, B, and C in order to call themselves The Omen or something. Which was not true, but they felt as if it were. So it's not scary. I know I'm crapping on the movie a lot, but it did do a few things that I did like. I liked a bit of the foundation here. Why? Because of the way that it chose to be relevant to a modern audience was actually pretty smart for a couple of reasons. They connected the images of end times to acts of terrorism such as 9/11. And I thought that was really, really smart because during that period period, I feel like a lot of people were scared, and it did at times feel like the end of the world was upon us, especially with the war in Afghanistan going on. It was kind of a crazy time, and you could connect that to maybe a biblical reference to the end times. Another thing that I liked about this film that I wish they did in the original film back in 1976 was they focused a little bit more on the dad's job as ambassador to Great Britain. They talk about that in the 1976 film, but you don't really see it all that much, nor are you really told why this is important in the long run for a character that's supposed to be the Antichrist. This one had a pretty big focus on the politics side, and I like that because I know when the Antichrist grows up, he's supposed to do basically the same thing. He's supposed to go into politics, and he did in the original series. I didn't believe it. They didn't really sell that point to me. That was the one thing in this movie that I felt like had a lot of potential if they wanted to go the extra mile and do the sequels as well. It never happened that way because this film just was too uninspired to gather an audience that wanted to see more. And unfortunately, that is what happens whenever you try to do something that is shot for shot exactly the same thing as the original. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know if they were trying to be too safe or they were just afraid of offending somebody by taking bold steps and making their own thing. I'm not sure. But a story about a young Antichrist is really, really cool. It has a lot of potential there. But at the same time, I can't say that I've loved any of these movies. I haven't. The score that I gave any of them was B. One got close to a B+, but it just never got there. I was hoping that the modern day version of the story might catch my attention a little bit more, get a higher score than the rest of them, because I do have a lot of hot takes. But no such luck. I'm going to be giving this a rating of D+. Slightly higher score than what I gave the fourth film, which was a D-. Both that and this movie feel pretty pointless. The only difference is that this remake at least makes more sense narratively than the fourth movie, because that one just didn't make sense narratively either. It doesn't really mean that there's any reason to watch it, because there's not. The first movie is the best out of all these movies so far. I have yet to see the first Omen. I'm very curious on what that's all about, but I will be taking a look at that next week when it comes out on digital. But until then, guys, leave me your thoughts on the Omen's remake in the comment section down below. Are you a fan of this film? Are you not? Why or why not? Do you prefer it over the original? I'll be really curious to hear that. As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. But until then, peace out!
Oh, the Omen, you came back, but why? The same old scenes under the same old sky. No risk was taken, no new tales spun. And uninspired remake got shown by the sun. Remember Psycho, it's remakes fake. Lesson unlearned, sealed the omens, debate a chance to evolve, to twist and to bend, but it played it too safe in the end, my friend.